was a citizen to get this job in Iowa, for which he presented apparently a social security card and a form testifying
so identity theft
right to work, or something. He was in possession of a loaded handgun. That's illegal to possess if you're not legally in the country at all. Let's see what else. His voter registration remained active even though he was moving to other states.
But inactive. But hold on, Blake and Steve. I was told that illegals don't.
You've been reliably informed. This does not happen.
The State Board of Elections in Maryland is obstructing efforts by the Department of Justice to investigate this because of the sanctuary state nonsense.
It's showing how corrupt and ridiculous their system is.
We actually basically have to say blue states, especially, are in a sustained, systematic effort to engage in immigration fraud and engage in voter fraud.
Yes.
And the most rational thing you can do at this point is basically
CDL
say
fraud too.
blue state records are not valid for things.
Well, no,
their driver's license are not valid driver's license.
Here's what this is exposing. What you're talking about is that once there is an exposure, the light comes to the darkness. There is an incentive for these blue districts and municipalities, blue states, to then cover it up and not expose it. So not only are you contributing to the problem, you're insisting that it continue.
And I've heard a lot of people say, well, how could this have happened? How did he pass any kind of screening? You have to understand, and this kind of ties in a way with what Pete Hegseth announced this morning, right? We're going to actually do war here now. We're going to have warriors now,
yes,
and not social engineering. And you have to understand, they did do vetting, and they did do background. It's just I like to say on my show, Andrew, that worldview is destiny, and no one can rise above their own worldview. They did vetting according to their worldview. They were looking for a DEI candidate. They were looking for someone that would subvert American culture. They were looking for someone that would subvert your children and help them to do a better and more efficient job of turning your children into gay race communists. And that's exactly why they hired them. They did a thorough vetting. They got exactly what they wanted to do. Just their vetting standard would be different. The worldview that they're operating with is different than ours. So things like, well, are you actually a citizen? That's just a minor technicality, especially because they use the schools, for example, to replace your way of life, to hijack your culture. You're watching replacement theory play itself out. They act on their worldview accordingly.
That's a conspiracy.
Except for when it's not and it actually happens.
Yeah, except for when the illegals are in charge of our school districts.
Correct.
So not only do you have woke commies that have insinuated themselves, basically complete saturation within our school system.
Yes.
Now you have illegal immigrants that are getting paid.
As the kids say today, Andrew, it's not a bug. It's a feature.
It's a feature.
This worked exactly as it was intended to. They just didn't think they would get caught.
1,000%. And here's the question, Steve. Do we abandon the institution and build our own? Or do we try and the long march back through the institutions? What is your prescription?
I think first, what we have to agree to do is that we will wield the power that we actually have. I don't think we've even earned the right to answer that question yet.
That's fair.
I think we have to, and I think the government shutdown that's happening right now or may occur, are we going to actually use the power that the people elected us and gave us? Because I think we don't decide that, then that other question becomes moot.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was this graph, I actually retweeted it as well, but it was talking about the share of conservatives or registered Republicans at these elite universities.
Right.
And I think at Harvard, it's 1%. And I think the best, surprisingly, was UCLA at 11%. And the guy who tweeted said, if we don't fix this, we can fix nothing. We'll be right back with Steve Deace.
The heartbeat for the first time. It increases the chance she'll choose life to 80%. An ultrasound is what saves lives. They need your help to make free ultrasounds accessible through Preborn. Preborn.
I got an email here from one of the listeners. She said, hi all. To Andrew's question regarding Suits, Charlie elevated every standard by his words, his actions, his disciplines, choice of music he plays for his children, classical, not sure about Jolene, little wink face, his incisiveness and more. I'm older, but I remember when pastors wore suits and had the Christian and American flags up by the podium, and then we wanted to appeal to the world outside the church doors, went from suits to Hawaiian shirts, ? I wonder if that casual dress reflected a more casual approach to biblical truths. Thank you, precious people. Thank you. And it doesn't have a name there, so we'll leave it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think when you up the game, a lot of people want to follow suit. Steve?
I chuckled at the reference to Hawaiian shirts because I go off on this all the time. The pastoral uniform in today's churches, Hawaiian shirts even in January, although I guess in Arizona you can wear those, but not where I live. Sweater vests year round, pleated khakis, right? Nicer than God. The graduates of the seminary of the Pensian sisters of perpetually furrowed brows. Okay, that kind of stuff. There's a third tablet. The Lord forgot to give Moses at Sinai. He forgot it. It just has one commandment on there: "Thou must be nice in all things, no matter what." Right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff has just plagued the American church.
The institutions in general. I see this email from this listener, and I'm like, we've just seen this degradation of all the institutions, a lack of standards across
Correct.
the board, which ties in to what Pete Hegseth did this morning, which I just, I chuckled at it because I don't want to get the clip here, but Charlie raged against what, Blake? Fat generals. He hated.
He would always go off on Millie because Millie was like, like the big, wide man.
He was really into white rage or something.
Yeah.
Reading about it.
You just be like, why don't you just like put the donuts down, Tubby, and like look a little trim.
Yeah. Well, so let's give a little Hegseth love here. Play cut 44.
Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations or really any formation and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
So this one's kind of personal to me on two fronts. One, I have fought a battle of the bulge in my own personal life for the last decade.
You're looking great.
I appreciate it. We're making progress, but I would still be probably what Pete would consider a fat general. All right, but I'm not a general, so he's right. The generals cannot be fat. And then my son-in-law, shout out to my daughter Anna and her husband Steve. He's a soldier. And so, he's gone through all of the recent fitness standards and things of that nature, and upping your game where that's concerned, and the various incentives therein. And you have to ask yourself what every previous generation of Americans, regardless of how they voted, what would every previous generations of Americans until now have said to the idea that we literally have to stop the military from getting fat? What would they think? How bad did we let go of the rope system-wide as a culture? That you have an illegal alien is the superintendent of the largest school district in one of America's states, and the Secretary of Defense /War has to tell his soldiers to stop being fat. And I think that and Charlie spoke a lot to this with the young men. I think this is where the anger and frustration of the Zoomer generation is coming in. They're looking at us, their parents and grandparents, and saying, what were you guys doing for the last generation that you left us this big, giant mess? How did you guys just systemically get so comfortable and so complacent that every single institution is degraded, if not weaponized against me, before I ever step into full adulthood here and try to become a husband, father, business owner, and productive American?
Yeah.
I think that's so well said, because Charlie was a big believer that this is the greatest country in the history of the world, and we say that proudly. We believe it. I believe that America is providential. I believe God has His hand on our country, and yet, if you look at just the DMV, if you look at the post office, Blake loves to rail against shipbuilding. We can't make things anymore.
We can't make anything.
Yeah. Like, how did we get here?
He's giving this speech about our generals being fat, but let's say we had to, be in a conflict with China, like a real conflict with China, and it would just be over. They can make drones better than us at probably 50 to 1. They can make ships better than us 200 to 1. They can make more planes. They can make more shells. They can make more of everything.
75% of our antibiotic supply is made by
totally
now.
hosed.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, listen, I do think that the American spirit, just like in World War II, would rise, and we would find ways around this stuff. We would.
But we didn't win World War II with spirit. We won World War II with we could make 200 more times.
I totally agree. I'm just saying, but we ramped up very quickly. We would be forced to ramp up very quickly again, and I do believe we would.
But Andrew, this is worldview as destiny again. The military we had before is exactly what the left and the spirit of the age wanted. That this wasn't an accident. They weren't aware that they were making us weaker. It was a managed decline. They were doing this on purpose.
Right.
And I think we need to come to grips with that on our side, Because if we don't come to grips with it, then we won't. That question you asked me a while ago, we won't. We'll say stuff like, "Well, if you did this to them, then they'll do this to us when they have power." They're already doing everything to us.
That's exactly right.
They're already doing everything to us. So to me, either we will use the power vested in us by the voters in order to punish evil, or evil will continue.
Well, let's talk about this more, because that's what it's really going to take, is that our leaders get encouraged to do the hard things, because you know that the New York Times and Ta-Nehisi Coates and Nicole Hannah-Jones are going to write nasty little grams about you in the New York Times, and Joe Scarborough is going to call you a fascist, or whoever's going to do what. It takes guts to look these demons in the eye. I'm not necessarily calling them demons, but there are real demons, and they heal insults, and Charlie was, amazing at basically like laughing off the attacks. How do we use power? What is this is something that we have talked about a lot on this show, is that we must use power. Right-Wing Wet Revolution, Charlie's book, was all about, it was actually a counter-revolutionary book, by the way. It was, we don't want blood in the streets. We want to restore the idea of the founders. We want to restore the Constitution. And the idea is that we have to use power to restore this, and we can't be afraid of it. So what is blocking us?
What's blocking us is twofold. Number one, we've had a passive church for a generation.
I totally agree.
That has watered down masculinity, the idea of initiative, power, that complacency was the highest virtue, being nice was the highest virtue. So we haven't been properly catechized into what meekness means. When Jesus says the meek shall inherit the earth, what does it mean? Meekness is power under control. That's what it means. But a lot of our men, whether it's absent-minded fathers, absent-minded masculinity in the pulpit, have not been discipled into what it means to use power under control. And then the other problem that we have is with the so-called phenomenon of the uniparty. And this is what movements that, like what TPUSA is a part of, what Trump has done to break up this idea. Well, all the names you just mentioned, I think everyone with the sound of my voice should scream at your radio or at your screen right now, why does anybody I'm voting for give a rip what any of those names think about them?
Totally.
But here's the thing. All those names you mentioned, they are very relevant. Unfortunately, a lot of the people we've been voting for a long time do care more about what those people say about them than what audiences like this says about them. And those two things are what we are up against. And so when we get elected, when we have power, listen, we have a code, right? We have to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. But there's another code also that says in Romans 13 that the purpose of government is to be an avenging angel, to bring the sword of righteousness against evil, to punish evil. The only reason Almighty God allows sinful human beings to govern themselves on any level or have governments at all is to keep the moral order, to punish evil. And we have to do that. And I think everything, the whole rules of engagement and traditions and decorums, throw all of that out. All right, and here's the new rule. Here are the new rules of engagement that I'm going to suggest to your audience. Everything other than explicitly what the Word of God says we cannot do to win, we're going to do everything else. That's it. Those are the new rules of engagement. All right, so we're not going to bear false witness. We're not going to break the 10 Commandments. All right, and I think this is where our rules of engagement, guys, have to dramatically change. And Charlie understood that.